I love it. How we get to seven, we get to seven, right? There's a bunch of different ways to do it. I would be surprised, right?
We created Free because someone had to stand for the addicts and loved ones of addicts who were suffering in silence, for the spiritual refugees who didn't have a place of belonging. A traditional church model doesn't create space for the conversations we know have to be had. Free is standing with those who are barely hanging on, who are longing for something new. Free is bridging the gap between spirituality and recovery. In this place, God meets us exactly where we are. This is what we stand for.
Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to Free. My name is Shelly. I'm a recovering addict, alcoholic. Happy to be here tonight, standing in for Seth and the crew that's having a blast out in Denver, seeing the community out there, learning more so they can bring back everything they learn here to implement in our community. So just if you've never been with us before, I think everybody has, but if you haven't, the structure of tonight is going to go a little bit something like we'll start with celebrations for 5 minutes. We'll celebrate things that have happened this week in our lives, and we'll pass the mic around and you can share. And then we go into the message, which we have Lindsay Joyce here with us tonight. Thank you, Lindsay. And then after that, we will do the meditation, which for 3 minutes, a song will play, and then we'll sit and meditate, and then we'll do our guest storyteller, and then we'll close out the ceremony or the gathering. Sorry, not ceremony. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. The gathering with heartbreaks, and then we'll end on that note. And then something we do here at Free that's very special to us is we don't do shame. It's not welcomed here. We don't do it. And every week we say it together on the count of 3. So on the count of 3, let's say it. We don't do shame. Ready? 1, 2, 3. We don't do shame. Thank you. And then what do we have next? I'll do this part 2. We have several volunteers that help set up and break down every week, and you can scan this QR code if you want to join in on that community. We have a lot of fun. We get to visit and fellowship after we set up. And we also have a hospitality crew, which some people brought some sweet treats tonight. Yes, Eric. and so anyway, we have a hospitality crew that also volunteers as well. And then next we have Connect cards. You can fill out a card at the connection table and you can receive some free merch. That's a good way for Seth to get your info, your email, your text. If you want to have coffee, just put a little note, say you'd like to meet with Seth. It's a good way to stay connected in the community. And then join the team. Sunday, April 26th at 3 o'clock, we are going to go bowling. And it's also with the Chicago Roundup crew. So if you're interested in bowling and you like to bowl, join in. That'll be a good time.
You like to bowl? You can
Yeah.
feel good at putting your fingers into holes and hard balls?
All right. Oh, yeah. And then Pete is going to read over some...
Sorry.
Did you want to read over that?
Yeah.
Your piece of paper? Okay.
Okay. So before I talk about the theme tonight, I want to welcome all of our friends over at the LSSI Sober House. If you have any celebrations or heartbreaks that you'd love for us to share with the entire community, please let the case manager on staff know, and they'll communicate that info to Ryan, and we'll be happy to share it with everybody who's here. And tonight, our theme is for anyone who felt like it was over, whatever over was, like something ended. Was it a relationship, a version of yourself, a belief, a future you that you thought you were walking into, and you didn't know what was left after that? There's this moment in sacred texts where everything has already fallen apart. And for those of us in recovery, we have all been there, right? The leader is gone. The movement looks finished, and most people will assume that that's the end. But in life, not everybody leaves, right? If you need somebody around. A few people will stay with you. They'll show up anyways. They don't give up, even when it doesn't make sense. And I think that is one of the best definitions of what a recovery community does, right? That's why we're all here. That's why we go to meetings. That's what fellowship, and that's what connection is for. Is we're not going to give up on the people around us that could use a little help or encouragement. And yet these people, somehow, these people who stick around and help us, they're the ones who are also experiencing something new.
Yeah.
So this week, we're talking about what it means to not give up on yourself, on your community, maybe even on God, especially when everything in you or everything around you says that it's over with. Because sometimes the miracle doesn't just come to the people who have it all figured out. It comes to the ones who just stay. Right?
Amen.
So if you're in a season right now where giving up feels easier, whatever that is, relapse or something else, you don't have to believe anything perfectly, right? That's the other thing with recovery, is we all realize that our understanding of recovery is never perfect. There's always more to learn. And I bet that's one of the reasons why we're here and why we continue to come. So you don't have to have it all together. You just don't have to give up. And so first, we are going to have Shelley walk around and do celebrations, and then I will pass the microphone over to our guest speaker, Reverend or Pastor Lindsay, who is a very good friend and colleague of Seth, and she's the pastor of the Grace Congregation of Logan Square. So if any of you at LSSI have a celebration you'd love to share with us, send it on over. In the meantime, I'm going to hand the mic back over to Shelley.
All right, so we'll start with celebrations. Anybody have something they'd like to share?
I'm Joe, great recovering addict. I had a couple of celebrations. Earlier this evening, I did this comedy gig. I've been doing comedy since I've been in recovery, and there was 4 comedians, and my friend told me, Joe, you were the funniest one, but not that I was trying to be the funniest, but it just, but it was a paid gig, which is kind of nice. And then earlier this week, I had this presentation at this national conference downtown, and it went very well, which is really great. So those are kind of cool things to happen, you know?
I have 2 celebrations. I'm really grateful to be with you all tonight. I have not been able to get out to Free since the launch, and so it's exciting for me to be here and to this space is amazing. I want to lift up like a celebration of this space. And a second one, which is a really silly one. My 5-year-old and my 8-year-old both got big haircuts today. They both got bobs, which is it's a very silly thing to celebrate, but they were feeling themselves so much when we left that salon, and they were texting everyone we knew. And I just was like, this is gender affirming care, but this is amazing. Like, this is like, I was just so grateful that they just like, it just boosted their self-esteem, and it's going to make me cry talking about it. But I was really grateful for it.
And I have a celebration that one of the people in our community who we had heard had gone out a couple of weeks ago is back in sober living and back on a path to resurrect his recovery because he didn't give up.
Amen.
Simply didn't give up and realized that he wants recovery more than anything else.
That's good.
Today, I celebrate a sponsee's strong decision to go back to treatment, and they didn't give up. and they felt like so many people were giving up on them. And they say when the pain becomes too great, we become willing. So they demonstrated their willingness by actually going into treatment today. So I'm happy about that. I personally am celebrating some weight loss, meaning I no longer have to wait for someone to mature. I don't have to longer wait for someone to get their things together. I don't no longer have to wait for someone to understand that reciprocation is not give and take. It's the quality in what you give and the quality in what you take, which means you have to know yourself in order to do those things.
That's right.
So that's all I got.
I love it, a new definition of weight loss. That is so cool.
Okay. Hi, I'm Eric. I'm an alcoholic and I suffer from an eating disorder. I am celebrating growth because I learned patience. Last weekend, I volunteered at my synagogue's Passover Seder dinner, and I volunteered to be a greeter. And when I got there, I was really annoyed. With any religion, I'm sure, in any congregation, whoever's been there the longest, whoever's already volunteered, of course, they're bossy. They're telling you how it should be done. They feel their family pays more money for the congregation. So I was just very upset, and I regret it, but I was thinking about smacking a little old Jewish lady. And I really wanted to leave, and I really regretted it, especially because I did want to see last week's speaker, but I volunteered. And then a friend of my fiance's walked in. I didn't even know she was part of the same congregation. I've never seen her. And I ended up having one of the best times. And I learned, even though it ended up only because I stayed and I just pushed through it, and I had the patience to do so. And now I'm going to remember that for the rest of my life if I'm ever upset or irritated.
Fantastic. Do we have any celebrations from our friends at LSSI? Great. So with that, I'm going to hand the microphone over to Pastor Lindsay about not giving up yet.
Amen. I'm going to let you keep that because I have the fancy one. Thank you.
She's fancy.
Right. Thank you so much. Hi.
Hello.
How are y'all doing tonight?
Hello, Pastor. We're great. Thank you.
I am great. Thank you for the pastor. That's really sweet. Also, feel free to call me Lindsay. You don't have to add the title if it's not something that you're comfortable with. But I'm really excited to be with all of you tonight. As I said, I haven't been able to be at Free in a while, but I'm Lindsay. Pronouns are she and her. I pastor Grace Church of Logan Square, and I work closely with Seth as part of a cooperative team. And so I'm really grateful and humbled to be able to come speak. And I know that Free is a place for addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. And so I'm coming to you in two of those categories tonight. The first one is I have a number of folks in my family who are in various stages of addiction and recovery. I have a number of folks who are people I love dearly and want to see thrive, and many of whom are. But I've also been a United Methodist pastor for 12 years. So that's the context that I come from, as I come from the United Methodist context. And because I usually serve multiple churches at once, I have served 11 churches in my 12 years. And I have yet to serve a single church where we didn't have someone in some stage of recovery or addiction or the squishy in between. And so I am very firmly a loved one of addicts in both my personal and professional life. So when Seth first brought the idea of recovery community to us and was like, can we do this? We were all in, because I'm intimately familiar with how important community and connection are for our recovery. But the category I actually want to talk to you about is the category of spiritual refugee. Because I also fit this category of spiritual refugee. And I know it sounds really strange because I just told you I've been in full-time ministry for 12 years, right? I've been in full-time ministry for 12 years, but here's the thing, even more than that, like if you want to talk about being a church insider, I work for the conference, which is like the powers that be of the United Methodist Church in this area. My father was a pastor and taught at the seminary on Northwestern's campus. I'm a Cradle United Methodist. So in almost every facet, I'm very much an insider. And still I claim that mantle of spiritual refugee. And that's what I want to talk to you about tonight. So how can I claim this mantle? I think the short answer to that question is something that many of us know, which is that being an insider in any congregation, any community, doesn't insulate you from the harm that can be caused in that community. Being an insider in the church, being a good church person, does not insulate you from the harm that church can do. It didn't insulate Jesus, right? It didn't insulate Jesus from the harm caused by good religious people. I don't think any of us are more protected from harm by good religious people than Jesus was. In my tradition last week, we celebrated this story of Easter, which, as a refresher, right, is the story of Jesus' resurrection from the dead. The Friday before Easter, we remember Jesus was executed by the state with the help of good religious people. With the help of good religious people. Jesus was horribly executed, dying a painful death. His body goes into the tomb and his entire movement scatters. They're gone, right? His 12 disciples, his 12 friends that he's collected and drawn near to him, they gather, they leave, they deny him. They locked themselves away. This movement of Jesus, this movement that was against the power of the Roman Empire, this Jesus movement of faith over fear, love over death, community over individual power, it was gone. And his followers were scattered and terrified, and they lost faith. Almost all of them. I love the story of Easter. And I love to tell the story of Easter, not just because it's the central story of my faith, but because Easter is one of the big Sundays when we get to talk about the women. We get to talk about the women that followed Jesus. Yeah, right. We get to talk about the other disciples, the women disciples, who don't get a lot of credit in our scripture stories. Because while all the male disciples are hiding or denying or running away because they think this is the end, they think this is done, they think that they've been lied to, they think that everything is over, the women are quietly going to the tomb to wash Jesus' body. They're quietly showing up. And who knows what their faith looked like in that moment? I can't imagine they weren't also scared. I can't imagine that they weren't also despairing that this movement that they had built, that they had given their lives to, their money, their spaces, their livelihood, I can't imagine that they weren't despairing that this movement felt over. These women, Mary Magdalene, they've got names, and we're going to name them. Mary Magdalene, Mary, Joanna, Salome. They showed up anyway when everything seemed impossible and everything seemed lost. And because they showed up, because they didn't give up, they were the first ones to experience resurrection. They were the first ones to see the empty tomb. They were the first ones that Jesus appeared to. They were the ones that Jesus told that I am risen. They were the first ones to preach resurrection, the first ones to tell the world about what had happened. Because they did not give up, they were the first ones to experience resurrection, even when it felt like everything was over. Here's the thing, friends, that Jesus movement, whatever you feel about it, it's still around. And the Roman Empire is not. And that has a lot to do with these women who didn't give up. They didn't give up. They kept showing up, even when it felt impossible that things could change. And to me, I think this is faith. I don't think faith or community is about feeling confident or even sure. It's about showing up anyway. It's about letting our bodies and our feet believe when our brains and our hearts cannot. Letting our bodies and our feet believe when our brains and hearts cannot. That's what the women did. And because they didn't give up, they are forever the first preachers, the first proclaimers of resurrection. I began ministry in 2012. Can I tell a personal story? Is that okay? Can I give a little bit of a testimony? Okay. I began ministry in 2012, and friends, 2012 was an incredibly depressing time to be in ministry. The church was failing in every way, right? Churches were shrinking, church was dying, the sky was falling. They kind of launched you out of seminary and were like, good luck. But more than that, the church was still really captured by the political reactivism of the early aughts. When I first started, especially about human sexuality, when I first began ministry, most people still whispered the word gay. They'd be like, oh, he's gay. God forbid we talk about people being queer or trans. And yes, there were pride flags in churches, but most churches hadn't done a lot of reckoning about what it meant to have a pride flag and how that changed the way that we function. I remember one church that I pastored lamented the fact that people my age, millennials, they didn't want to come to the church. And then I met them, and they were all queer. And I said, friends, I think I have some insight into why they don't want to come to this place. It was a tough time to be in ministry. We don't need to get heavily into the politics of the church, but this was the cultural landscape of the church when 2016 happened and when 2020 happened. And people in the church got scared, and church started to feel narrow and small. And I have to confess to you all, I struggled to believe in the community that raised me. I struggled to find a place and to find a grounding in a place I had always called home, because it was just painful to be there. Not God, mind you, but the church. That's a tough spot to be in when your job is church. Now, I would love to tell you that I kept showing up, that I didn't give up, because I am particularly virtuous and holy and self-sacrificing. But that is simply not the case. In fact, I tell people one of the reasons I was called into ministry was because I needed an extra layer of accountability to get up and show up on Sunday mornings. I tell people, or I kept showing up. I didn't give up, mostly because I had people that relied on me. I had people that cared about whether or not I showed up. I had a community that was hurting and fragmenting, and here's the thing, they weren't always nice about it. They weren't always nice to me. People living in fear and struggle aren't always their best selves. And sometimes it hurt to show up, but I kept showing up, sometimes just because people would notice if I didn't. I kept showing up in this space. I think that's showing up, that not giving up yet, right? Because that's what it's really about. I'm not giving up yet. I'm not giving up today. Tomorrow, we'll worry about tomorrow, but today I'm not giving up yet. That not giving up is a glimpse of resurrection. Right? I'm going to say it again. Letting our feet and our bodies have the confidence that our hearts and our minds don't, the showing up. We say, I'm not giving up yet. And that not giving up, for me, it's a glimpse of resurrection, because what it does is it makes life possible under the mantle of death. It makes life possible under things like the violence of American empire. We are already glimpses of resurrection when we live when an empire wants us dead. And that's the story of Easter. To live when an empire wants us dead. When we live when an empire wants us dead, we are glimpses of resurrection. When we expand when an empire wants us small, we're glimpses of resurrection. When we live, when we don't give up, when we are trans or queer or a woman or a person of color or an addict or a religious minority, or we have a record, or we're Palestinian or Iranian, or God forbid any combination of those. When we live, when empire wants us small, wants us gone, when we gather together, when we don't give up, we're glimpses of resurrection. And friends, the really good news is empire cannot outlast resurrection. Empire cannot outlast resurrection. Because I kept showing up, I found the other folks who were showing up but longing for something different. Folks like Seth and my other colleagues who saw the community that church could be. And we stopped caring what the narrow church from 2012 thought about us.
It stopped holding power over us because there were more of us than we realized, and we found each other because we kept showing up, because we didn't give up. And we protected each other, and we encouraged each other to build something new. And that's what made communities like Free possible. It's what made communities like my church. Now, my church is a lot more a traditional Sunday morning church, but it's a place where we talk about expanding rather than narrowing ourselves because we believe in a God of liberation. It makes possible for us something new. It makes possible what I believe, which is that God's grace is bigger than and outlasts any death-dealing empire on earth. But the first step to any of that is just to say, I'm not giving up yet. Not today. We'll worry about tomorrow. But today, I'm not giving up yet. May it be so.
So now at this point, I would like to introduce our guest storyteller, John M. John M. John M. has been in the AA program for 38 years, and so he's going to share with us some of his insights on recovery in his 4th decade of recovery and sponsorship. So, John, thank you very much. Once I'm done talking, I will hand the microphone over to you so that you can be heard. So, and this is not John's first time at a free meeting. He has been at free meetings before, so it's really great that you're stepping up and sharing your story with us. You shared with me that you spent about most of your sober life in Texas before moving to Chicago 15 years ago, and your sobriety date is sometime like 1989. 87, sorry. So what keeps you actively participating in recovery programs after having been in recovery for so many years?
First, good evening, everybody. I'm John, and I am an alcoholic. Thank you for having me. Miss Lindsay, Reverend Lindsay, thank you. I kept hearing a few things that related to recovery. Suit up, show up, do the next indicated thing. All right, that was the first thing that came to my mind. And the other one is say, stay in the middle of the boat. And there was one other thing, and I can't remember what it was. For me, I got sober in Norfolk, Virginia in 1987 after leaving the United States Navy. I was asked to leave. Think of the times. I'll give you a few minutes. If you're too young to remember, come to me, I'll tell you. The policies were different than they are today. I was very fortunate to have my ex-boyfriend's boyfriend take me to my first meeting. It's a small circle. But I'm very grateful that person did. That person is still sober today. We are sober brothers. Like y'all, you are part of the family. I come from 9 of 10. That's my Borg designation. I have 30 nieces and nephews, 60, soon to be 62 great nieces and nephews, and 4 great. The recovery, I'm one, maybe of 3 people who are in recovery. My nephew is finally putting some days together, but the rest of them, it's like a hot mess. All I could do is lead by example. So your question was, how do I stay sober amongst 38 years of 1 day at a time? Key, 1 day at a time. I don't worry about tomorrow. Yesterday's gone. I know what yesterday was, maybe. I'm 62 years old, so, but I am the most active 62-year-old person you will ever meet. Try to keep up with me. It's like the Energizer Bunny on steroids. And my sponsee here, he knows. And it was a surprise that my sponsee came in the door. I was like, I didn't tell anybody. I don't tell anybody anything. I don't even tell my sponsor where I'm at half the time. He just has to look on social media to figure out where I'm at. Why? Because it's my program. I'll do what I want. But what keeps me coming back is the knowing that a drink is just that far away. Go to any lengths to stay sober today. That was the other thing. My program is nothing like it was when I walked in the doors. I felt, I'm going to use an old cartoon, I felt like the Wile E. Coyote got hit on the head again by the giant boulder that the Roadrunner had hit, dropped off the cliff again. That's how I felt when I walked into these rooms. But I had no idea the GIFTS that this program was going to give to me. There are so many gifts at this program, and I get a little emotional talking about the program. Why? Because I would not be here. Death and loss is a part of my family. I recently lost a brother-in-law who was a Native American due to the fact that he was an alcoholic and drank his whole life. I lost 3 brothers one in 2015 to cirrhosis of the liver, one in 2019 due to hepatitis C, and one in 2023-ish due to stomach cancer due to drinking his entire life. My dad was an alcoholic. He also died of this disease. So it's out there. I know it. Literally. It's right there. I know it. So what is different between day one and I'd have to look on my phone to see what day it is, somewhere in the hundreds of thousands of days. The thing is, nothing's changed. The literature's been updated a little bit. The program still remains the same, helping another person of recovery stay sober today, one day at a time. You know, for those who are new, I'm glad you're staying. Buckle your seatbelt. It's going to be a bumpy ride. This program is not for people who want to take it easy. It is a program of action. You can't just sit down and get the program through osmosis. You have to work to get what you want. You want a change in your life? Well, what are you afraid of? F-E-A-R. Fear can be many things. You can face everything and recover. You can F and run away from it. Or you can decide that fear is just something you can walk through and know it's going to be okay. If you get your tribe, what's a tribe? You all could be in my tribe. I'm accepting applications. Just show up. Come to a meeting. You're in a tribe. Whatever is you're facing, and trust me, I'm going through some crazy, I have been through crazy things. I have been scammed. I have been broken up with. I've had losses. I have had moved across this country more times. I feel like I'm a gypsy, and I'm going to move again. I'm wanting to, I feel like my time in Chicago is up, and I want to go to Houston to start exploring Latin America. Why? Because it's cheaper, and there's a calling. When I hear something like you said you got called to do what you do, I feel I'm being called to do something else. Because recovery is not big in Latin America. So, si te habla español, poquito, comprende español, todo es de todo es de español. So I can speak the language. And I can shout it out really good. Comprende? Yes, easy. All right, so I can understand a little bit, but I practice every day. It's like this program. I practice the program in all of my affairs. No matter what, I stay sober and stay in the middle of the boat. I get people. I have friends that have been sober for 40, 50 years, and I've got friends who have been sober 30 days, 60 days, 17 days. You know, they've had relapses. Yes, I love you. Come back and see me. What was it that made you go out? Tell me about it. What was it? What was the fear behind it? What was the reasoning behind it? What could you have done differently? 4 steps right there. 1, 2, 3, 4. My 4-step is not a 4-column 4-step. It is a 7-column 4-step. Thank you from a friend in Texas. My Tom in Texas, she showed me this lovely 7-column 4-step. And I still use it today. And it's like, what is the trigger from the past? What can I change? What are resentments? What can I do differently? Or what is the cause and effects? When it's time for me to do a 4-step, it does not take 9 months. And if it's taking you 9 months to do a 4-step, that's too long. I don't care if you had sex with 400 people. I was on a ship of 1,500 men in the Navy. Hello. My sexual inventory, I have no clue. But my sponsor listened to it anyway and just like, next. Okay. So, what is it that is different today? My life from my perspective. Like I said, I walked in the program, I was a 24-year-old boy. I'm now a 62-year-old fit daddy. There's a big difference. Okay? The only thing that's changed is my sobriety date, and I still am the same person I walked in the door. I'm still crazy, but I'm a little bit more saner than I was the day before. Next question.
Something else you shared with me is you have been a sponsor for over 30 years, and you sponsor people in both AA and CMA. How has your role as a sponsor or your strategy as a sponsor evolved over all these years?
I didn't become a sponsor for crystal meth addicts until I moved to Chicago. So it's been 15 years. I had to first learn what crystal meth was. And the only way to learn is by going to meetings and hearing their stories and listening and seeing them work a program that is similar but different. But then I was realizing a lot of the crystal meth addicts were not getting the time because that disease, those drugs were totally foreign to me, and I didn't understand why the gentlemen and ladies could not stay sober. And I get it now. It's totally something that's different from alcohol, and the high is different, and all the stuff that they take was different from what I did. All I could do is do my best to suit up, show up, and try out of my vocabulary, do my best to give them an offer of a solution of hope. And that is all I can do. I am very fortunate. One of my sponsees came from another sponsorship family, and I've been working with him he's been sober 20, I've been here for 15. We've been working together for 17 years. And the other sponsee, I'd ask how long we've been working together, and we've been working together for 5. And the other sponsee I have is just a normal AA person. So you'd have to sit down and ask them, but I work it the same way. We do everything the same. We do the steps the same. And if they want to work it out of the CMA handbook or the NA handbook, bring the questions and I will switch them around because I used to be a teacher, and I will make the questions work. Is that right? Yeah, he's shaking his head. So that's what I do with anybody who's in that program. If I decide to sponsor you, that's what we do. Next question.
Thank you. How has your opinion of the Big Book and your use of the Big Book evolved as both somebody that is in recovery and a sponsor of people in recovery for so many years? Do you still get value out of the Big Book or something different?
Great question. I'm not a thumper. Never have, never will be. I have never sat down with any of my sponsees and read page by page. I figured you went to school, got an education, know how to read a book. Come to me, we'll answer questions. I can't open the book and tell you what page it is. I have a phone for that. I can do my research. Currently, all my literature are in boxes because I'm planning to move. However, the Big Book is online, and I have an app to that as well, so I can dig it out of a phone. And that's what is great about technology today versus 38 years ago. You couldn't do that. I still have my original book. It still got lots of underlines. It still has writing in the margin. So does my version 2. So does version 3. I have not gotten the new one that has newer, updated words because I have a problem with the words thou and they and all those words from 1924. I always was told three things I was told: have a highlighter, have a pen, have a dictionary. When reading the Big Book from the original, the first print, because I didn't understand half those words. And today, those words you can't even find some of those words in the dictionary today. So I had to rewrite my own little words of what they meant. And there's sometimes I come across stuff that are in the 12 of 12 or the Big Book that I still, what is it, a new word? Did they write it again and I just didn't see it? No, because whatever's going on when you reread the big book and the 12 and 12, whatever's going on just happens to pop out and glare at you in the face.
Wonderful. Well, we are out of time, unfortunately, or else I'd love to ask more questions from somebody with so much experience. Thank you very, very much for sharing your strength, hope, and experience with us. Let's all give John a round of applause. So now we're at the point of the meeting of heartbreaks, in which we encourage anyone to share something that you've been carrying with you or struggling with you, and you can speak for 10 seconds or you can speak for a minute. Just share with us whatever's on your mind. We'd love to hear it.
Me again. No. You know, that's what life is. It's heartaches and celebrations, it seems. I'm going to be going to Boston in probably about a week to 10 days. And since my mom had passed, my brother Walter is dragging his feet on things, and I don't know. We just have to clean out the house. And my parents were pack rats, but I have the truck, so we can go to the dump. And it was fun with my sister Mary last time. We had such a close bond going through things. We found an old picture of my mom, and we've never seen before. But I have a brother Billy that's very difficult and that likes to. What messes with me is when people don't have the best intentions, or at least their intentions are more selfish. But and I have to clean out my stuff, and so I'm finally having to face a fear of something I've been ignoring for many years, and so yeah, thank you.
I have an employee who lost her father in the last 6 months, and then lost her uncle, and just let me know that she has a second uncle in hospice, and they're not expecting him to make it through the weekend. So that's just a lot of loss in one family in a short amount of time. So I wanted to lift her up. Her name's Leslie.
One of the people from our community that had gone out a couple of weeks ago, sadly, is still out. And since then, he has been kicked out of his second sober living after having to exit Bonaventure. And I know that there's a small community of us that are reaching out to him and saying, whenever you want to come back in, let us know. We will come get you. And let's just say a little prayer that that text message to one of us to come get him happens sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
My heart breaks for the individual who has yet to come in, hold on, stand firm, along with other members that have been in these rooms for so long in order to make it through the horrors of their addiction, and who choose unknowingly to die at 23, 24, 25, 26, and never really get to see the benefits of this program. Let's stop trying. We either do or we don't. If I don't, I ask for help. If I do, I celebrate with those who can help me celebrate in a healthy way.
Yeah.
But that's all I got. Thanks.
Do you want to close with the closing?
Oh, yes, and we close with a prayer. So Ryan, thank you. So Ryan typically chooses our prayers, and so we can all read it together. God
of the long night and the coming dawn. For those of us walking through heavy seasons, give us the courage to keep going one more day. For those who feel stuck in darkness, remind us that nothing in this life stays the same forever. Help us trust the slow work of
Our higher power.
Our higher power. Help us trust
the slow work of our higher power.
to bring us to a happier, calmer, peaceful place.
All
Amen.
right.
Amen.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. So, thank you all very much for coming. We've done our best as the Seth substitutes. We appreciate your participation. Huge thanks to Lindsay for sharing an incredible, timely message. I've never heard of the Easter story that way. That's one of those I'm going to remember, as I never thought of it as a community that felt collapsed
Yeah.
on that Saturday after Jesus died. And the wisdom in some of the simplest parts of Christianity we miss. And thank you, John M., for sharing your wisdom. We really appreciate it. Thank you to Ryan for being our incredible AV superstar. And thanks to all of you for coming. The great man, Seth, will be back in the saddle again to lead another wonderful meeting next week. And
Oh, next week.
next Saturday, yes. So we hope that all of you will join us next Saturday. So thank you all for coming. Wish you a great rest of your evening and a great rest of your weekend. Thank you all.